More high-profile names from convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein's unsealed documents expected to be released in the coming days. Yesterday, more than 100 names were made public, including former Presidents Bill Clinton and Donald Trump.
Joining us now to tell us what, if anything, the documents reveal is attorney Cary London. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, names that we recognize and we've seen before, were there any surprises in these documents?
Honestly, yes, there were a few surprises. I didn't expect to see David Copperfield's name. I didn't expect to see Stephen Hawking's name. But the biggest surprise, honestly, was that Jimmy Kimmel wasn't mentioned, considering they share a chef. So Jeffrey Epstein and Jimmy Kimmel had the same chef for many years. And leading up to this dump by Judge Preska, everyone thought that Jimmy Kimmel's name might be listed or might be spoken about. And in the 40 documents released, zero mention of Jimmy Kimmel. That honestly surprised me the most, considering if you share a chef with someone, you would think that maybe you have some interaction.
So that was the root of the whole Aaron Rodgers thing or whatever.
Drama, yeah.
Can we talk about what it means to be mentioned in this? Because a lot of the mentions were that there wasn't really any major contact, it seems. It seems a bit confusing. Just the idea of a mention in these documents
Perfect example
doesn't necessarily mean
anything, because Leonardo DiCaprio, Cameron Diaz, and Halle Berry were all mentioned, but they were mentioned in passing. They were not mentioned as being on his plane. They were not mentioned as being involved in any sexual exploitation. They were mentioned as, after he finished a massage with one of the girls, he would call someone and be like, "Oh, hey, Leo," or he would take one of the girls to Halle Berry's birthday party abroad. So it was, you know, a lot of sizzle without substance. It was names being dropped by Judge Preska, which I think the public had a right to know, though.
Yeah, but then it does beg the question that what was the significance of dropping these names and making these documents public?
Well, Judge Preska decided that the public interests of society as a whole, Democrats, Republicans, independents, me, you, that outweighs the privacy interests of these 100 John Does that were previously named John Doe in the document. So the judge decided that she wants the public to be able to see whose names were John Does, because she thinks that the public interest outweighs the private interest for these
And there's a
individuals.
couple more names that are expected to be released in the coming weeks. What do you expect of that?
Well, they've released about 40 to 45 of the 200 documents. I mean, the most damning was the May 2016 deposition of one of the victims, who told us a lot of things about Ghislaine Maxwell's intimidation and coercion. And I think as the other 150, 160 documents get released, we're going to understand the net, the breadth, and the ability of Epstein to be able to get away with this, I think.
Yeah, I think it really gave you an idea of the scale of the operation and kind of the world of Jeffrey Epstein and what he was operating in.
If Jeffrey Epstein can fly over New Jersey, get on the phone and say, hey, let's visit Trump, and go to one of his casinos, we have no idea what other powerful people he was in connection with on a daily basis.
And we don't really know big picture exactly. What was he? A spy of some sort? I mean, he wasn't really a financier or whatever. He had a ton of money. We don't really know where it came from.
He was a high school grad. He was a high school dropout.
Right.
He had a $600 million fortune.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
So many questions.
Yeah, a lot. All right, to be continued. That's all we can do. All right, Cary London, we appreciate it.